Drive left center field. He might have had it. There it goes. It's there. Oh, Ducker! Padres tied it 2.
As an organization, with the new people in here, we've all sat down and outlined our plan, what type of players we're looking for, and they've got a great plan for next week.
That was Chargers head coach Mike McCoy last Thursday as he looked ahead exactly 1 week to the start of the 2013 NFL Draft and the next step in the rebuilding process for the Chargers. Welcome to the Sports Page on a Monday and our special in-depth look at the draft.
Later in the show, Kevin, you and UT mock draft expert Eddie Brown will break down the entire first round and also look to the other 6 rounds and what direction the Chargers might go.
Yep, plus former Chargers defensive end Jacques Cesaire and UT Chargers beat writer Michael Gelkin join us in studio for a pre-draft Chargers roundtable. First,
though, let's get to this. New General Manager Tom Telesco also spoke last week in advance of his first draft in charge. He wasn't very specific about what he's looking for.
So he's got that down as a general manager. Got it.
But stop the presses. He wants the Chargers to get faster.
I know one thing. We're trying to add some team speed. That'd be one thing. We're looking for depth almost everywhere. We'll get a better feel for these guys once we get into training camp, exactly what we have. Training camp is where you really evaluate your roster. OTAs, mini camps, that's really more for instruction purposes. But right now, we're looking to add almost everywhere. We'd like to add competition and add some talent almost everywhere.
Woohoo, stop the presses, Annie, just like you said. Hey, they aren't fast enough. They can increase team speed at a few spots. So can every team.
Right.
And I don't know what Tom Telesco is going to do about that, needing 2 offensive linemen probably early in the draft. But to his point about looking to add almost anywhere, it's a curse and a blessing. With the holes in this roster, offensive line, inside and outside linebacker looking for starters, depth on the defensive line, strong safety, the Chargers can almost justify drafting any position at any point in the draft.
Although the fans will be out there with their pitchforks if they don't draft offensive line.
Yeah.
So we know what the top priority is. It's finding a left tackle. Now, if the rumblings are to be believed, it sure doesn't look like we can expect.
They're not.
Well, it is Liars Month,
right.
but I know, but it doesn't seem like we could expect one of the top 3 left tackles or tackles, Luke Jokel, Eric Fisher, or Lane Johnson, to be available when the Chargers exercise their first pick at number 11. We can't know for sure, but there are 4 or 5 teams that need an offensive lineman in that top 10. Tom Telesco talked about this being a unique draft at the top.
This year, it's really unique, it seems like, because I'd say the first, 15 picks or so, and we do this for a living every day, and we don't really know who may go in the first 15, which is a little different. I think usually the first 4 or 5, you can pretty much pinpoint who's going to go in the top 5, and then after that, you have to start doing some educated guessing. But this year, the first round, I think from a fan standpoint, should be really exciting. For us, it just means probably more preparation than usual because it's hard to get a really good feel on what may happen, probably, say, in the first 15, certainly first 10.
This uncertainty that he's talking about, it has to do with the lack of there being more than one top 10 quarterback. Could be the first time since 2000 that no QBs go in the top 10, and it will almost certainly be just the 3rd time since 2002 that fewer than 2 quarterbacks are drafted in the top 10. Now about the tackles, we'll know what's going on by number 7. Then it'll be time to turn our attention, if as expected they're gone, we'll turn our attention to the guards. Chance Warmack, Jonathan Cooper. Hey, we'll talk more about that later in this show with Eddie Brown.
Yes, you will. All right, well, what about taking or trading up to either get make sure when they get one of those tackles or trade down to make sure that they get more picks? Tom Telesco talked about that as well.
It's always an option to maybe move down and pick up some picks, which would be great. The board will tell you a lot of times if you can do that, because if you're going to trade down, you have to know what you're going to get when you do trade down. And then the other side of that is always, can you find somebody that wants to trade up? And that's something you can make some calls before the draft, but really in reality, you don't really know until either you're on the clock or a couple picks before if you're going to actually do that. But yeah, it's certainly an option.
I think with all the needs that we've already talked about, that we're going to be talking about this show, they can sit at number 11. I do like the idea of them trading down if there is a deal there, if of course. They can pick up some picks and also still get a good player if that happens. If they like a tackle at the end of the first round, how about working a deal with the San Francisco 49ers, who have 14 picks, Annie, including 5 of the first 93.
Yeah, I think I heard their GM talking about how to have a good draft for them, they only need about 10 picks. So.
Well, I mean, the truth is, I don't know where they'll fit 10 players.
Exactly.
This is a team who went to the Super Bowls, been the 2 straight NFC championships. They can fit 7, 8 players on their roster,
14.
so they'll be traded.
Exactly. All right, well, I asked Tom Telesco his philosophy on how long he'll entertain trade offers while the Chargers are on the clock Thursday night. He said, of course, yes, there's a cutoff point, but he wouldn't say what that was. I did think it was interesting that he spoke about having been in draft rooms every year since 1995, watching first Bill Polian and then serving as the number 2 to Indianapolis Colts GM Ryan Grigson. So Telesco has been preparing. He was asked also if there's been a lot of trade talk already.
Just a couple, but not as many as usual. But next week it may pick up a little bit. But it's a unique year. Like there's just aren't the top 4 or 5 guys you can just pencil in and are ready to go. So, but we'll see next week if the calls pick up. But there hasn't been too much yet.
Most of this action comes at the draft when the round is started.
Right.
Interesting that Telesco acknowledged that there's not as many calls as usual so far, though. I think that's a product of teams ahead of the Chargers being pretty set with what they want, and perhaps the Chargers being okay with whoever's available to them at number 11. Like we said, lots of ways to go. Also, there's a lack of truly distinguishable players in this first round. The type of player where you'd expect a team or teams to specifically target and do whatever they can to get him. There's not that type of player.
Right, there's no really standing out. All right, well, we'll see how Tom Telesco's first draft goes, and then down the road, we'll see how he does keeping the guys he selects. That's the hot topic, and it's been an issue recently for the Chargers. Here's Mike McCoy talking about just that.
Like we've said from, I think from Tom's first press conference, the first day he was hired here, he talked about, building through the draft and developing those players, re-sign your own guys and do all those things, keep the guys in-house. But you always want to keep, the guys you draft and re-sign them, and, so it's not just a developmental for some other team. You want to try to keep your guys whenever you can. But with today's, salary cap and everything, you got to make tough decisions at certain times. And we're going to do whatever we can to, to draft the right guys and re-sign them and keep them here long term.
I like that we're getting ahead of ourselves here. That's what we do, right? We're looking down the road. They haven't even done this draft yet, and we're talking about re-signing these guys. Well, look, it's a good topic. For as relatively poorly as the Chargers have drafted over much of the past 6 years, I'm not saying every pick has been bad, but, let's be honest. A bigger issue, perhaps, they also haven't kept the good guys they have drafted. Vincent Jackson, gone. Darren Sproles, gone. Louis Vasquez, gone. Just this. How did you know that's where I was going? It will be very interesting. This will be the next test after the draft, and we'll know sooner than we'll know how this draft works out, meaning the results. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see when and if Telesco gets Donald Butler done. All right, the inside linebacker is heading into the final year of his contract. He could be the core of the Chargers defense right there with Eric Weddle, Corey Liuget, Kendall Reyes for years if they get him done. After that, Corey Liuget will be a priority.
Absolutely. And why do you talk about getting guys signed early? I mean, I imagine it's both for the good of the team, but also they can get these guys a little bit of a discount.
Right, so they don't lose them and they might get them. Like, for instance, A.J. Smith did get Eric Weddle back in 2011, but the Chargers waited until they had to pay Weddle a premium price. Absolutely top dollar. I'm not saying Eric didn't deserve that money. Everybody knows I got the love for Eric. But it would have been cheaper, Eric acknowledges this, his agent acknowledges this, to do that deal a year early. Another example, way worse, Annie. The Chargers overpaid right tackle Jeremy Clary in 2011.
No.
Yep, because they were desperate for a right tackle. They had other needs. Oh, we got this guy here. We know him. All right, let's give him $20 million. They waited until he was an unrestricted free agent. I advocated getting Clary earlier, getting him in and getting him much cheaper. All right, well, coming up, UT mock draft expert Eddie Brown. Do you know, Kevin, that Eddie's mock draft updates have consistently been the top content people pay for on our UTSanDiego.com site?
over the past month. People can't get enough of the draft mocking.
The draft mocking. No, I will not mock the mock drafting. I did know that. Eddie's revenue generating work. Very good, Eddie. We will have Eddie for the next 2 segments. We'll see whether he predicts the Chargers will get one of those top 3 tackles, or do they go guard or pass rusher, or does Eddie have some sort of surprise for us? Stay tuned.